This article here from Newsweek states that if we do not learn from the ancient Egyptians and worship Ra, the Egyptian sun god, then our civilization as we know it is doomed.
Now, this next point is very important for us to understand, because in the same article it says that everyone should keep a Sabbath in order to care for the climate. And it continues to say that each religion can observe a Sabbath on the day of their choosing. But it ends by saying that we must worship and honor Ra, the Egyptian sun god. Now, on which day of the week did the pagans primarily observe as the chief day of the sun?
It was none other than Sunday.
Exactly.
So this lets us know that this COP27 meeting is nothing but a disguise to get the nations to rest and worship on Sunday for the climate. And so what's interesting about that is that it brings my mind to a chapter in the book, The Great Controversy. And that chapter is entitled, An Era of Spiritual Darkness. And in that chapter, it lets us know that in the early centuries, Sunday, as well as God's true seventh-day Sabbath, were both seen as holy days. However, as time progressed, Sunday was exalted above God's true seventh-day Sabbath by civil and religious leaders, while correspondingly, God's true seventh-day Sabbath was demoted and declared as a curse.
On November 13, 2022, church leaders from around the world will head the movement to ascend Mount Sinai in Egypt and then descend with the agenda to implement 10 Commandments plus 1 to combat climate change.
This solution they will impress upon the civil leaders to enact. Now, what deity will be revered and honored in this event? Well, the reports state that it is Ra, the Egyptian sun god.
The events that will proceed from this COP27 climate change summit will have global repercussions. This documentary will reveal how COP27 is really a spiritual movement to force everyone on Earth to make a decision, either to observe a man-made universal day of worship or to honor God's true Sabbath. And the choice that we make will have eternal consequences.
There's a lot to discuss when the COP27 summit kicks off in Egypt, Sharm el-Sheikh on November the 6th. Let's take a look at the topics to watch.
1.5 degrees.
Stay below 1.5 degrees.
1.5 Celsius.
Countries promise to revisit and strengthen their national climate plans to ensure they are aligned with the Paris Agreement goal of preventing warming beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial temperatures.
This is real progress in keeping 1.5 degrees within reach. Progress that we have made together.
COP, or COP, which stands for Conference of the Parties, is a climate change conference organized by the UN to address global warming. Now, this year, they are holding their 27th summit in Egypt, and they believe that millions of lives will be saved if the nations implement several policies that will limit the Earth's temperature from increasing greater than 1.5 degrees Celsius.
The two main religious organizations at the helm of COP27 and the return to Mount Sinai are the Interfaith Center for Sustainable Development and the Elijah Faith Institute.
An article written by Newsweek entitled, For Our Sin of Emissions, 10 plus 1 Climate Commandments, clearly outlines what the so-called 10 Commandments plus 1 are. The author is a Jewish man by the name of Yosef Abramowitz, who serves as an ambassador for Israel's Climate Solution Prize. Out of the 11 commandments, we will just highlight 2. Their number 6, keep the Sabbath. Their number 11, which is their plus 1 commandment, don't give up hope or the fight.
Notice what is said under their commandment number 6. Emissions are down 30% over the Sabbath every week in Israel and are almost zeroed out on Yom Kippur. A global, weekly, non-carbon day of rest could reduce emissions of the world by 1/7 and can be observed by different faith communities on different days.
It sounds good, doesn't it? to allow each religion to observe a set day of rest on their respective holy days. But is this really feasible? 3 of the largest world religions include Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, and the majority of their members worship on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, respectively.
Would the general public approve of having the majority of businesses and services closed down up to 3 times a week? Or do you think that more citizens would be in favor of having just one universal day of rest, which works for most people?
Now let's go back to the article by Joseph Abramowitz and pay attention to the startling +1 commandment called, "Do not give up hope or the fight." Now right here he states that we should honor and worship Ra, the Egyptian sun god.
Which religious and civil leader has been foremost in pushing the agenda to combat climate change? It is Pope Francis the Jesuit. His encyclical Laudato Si serves as the basis of the UN Paris Climate Agreement.
According to paragraph number 237 of Laudato Si, Pope Francis states that all nations should enact Sunday rest by law to combat calamities and to care for the poor.
So from different perspectives, we have discovered that the ascension of Mount Sinai counterfeits God's law and his true Sabbath.
God's 10 commandments have not changed, which means the 7th day of the week, commonly called Saturday, is still God's Sabbath. The religious and civil leaders are uniting to lay the foundation for a national Sunday law, which will force people to rest and worship on Sunday or face prosecution, persecution, and even the death penalty. Based on the prophecies of the Bible, this great event of spiritual, mental, and physical, even financial enslavement begin in America and then goes worldwide.
During the drought and famine in the days of Elijah, the religious and civil leaders were summoned to ascend Mount Carmel. Who did they worship as the solution to end their climate crisis? It was Baal. And what is Baal worship? According to 2 Kings 23 and verse 5, Baal worship is nature worship, and the chief god of nature is the sun.
Interestingly, as you study history, Baal and the Egyptian god Ra are the same god under different names by various nations.
Based on history, it was Emperor Constantine of Rome who was the first to enforce Sunday worship by law throughout the empire on March 7th, 321 AD.
The Roman Catholic Church takes credit for making Sunday popular as the new day of worship. In the Roman Catholic book, The Convert's Catechism of Catholic Doctrine, on page 50, it says, "Which is the Sabbath day?"
Answer: Saturday is the Sabbath day.
Why do we observe Sunday instead of Saturday?
Answer: we observe Sunday instead of Saturday because the Catholic Church transferred the solemnity from Saturday to Sunday.
Based on these evidences, we can clearly see that this movement to ascend Mount Sinai and descend with 10 commandments +1 is a movement that will eventually force Sunday worship by law upon the people. When this is enforced, it will be the mark of the beast, mentioned in Revelation chapter 13, verse 15 through verse 17. In this time of crisis, what will your decision be? Will you receive the mark in your forehead? Will you receive the mark in your right hand to enjoy the conveniences of life? Will you serve man or will you serve God? It's decision time. Oh, my friends, Jesus said, "If you love me, keep my commandments. If you love him, obey his 7th-day Sabbath." Death before dishonor, or the transgression of God's law, should be the motto of every Christian. Christ loved us so much, he gave his life for all of us. If we claim to love him, we should be willing to give our lives for Jesus and his truth. We're about to enter a time of trouble such as never was. Place faith above fear. As the Bible says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. God hasn't given us the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. Faith in the ability of Christ to save us amply, fully, entirely, in His way, in His time, is the faith of Jesus Christ. Put pep in your step with a song for these last days. I'll tell you what the acronym means. Patience, endurance, and prayer. And song is a weapon we can always use against discouragement in these last days. Are you ready? Are your family members ready? Are you being converted? Are you in the right location? In the rural district for a time when we can't buy or sell? For a time as this, for character building? I'll leave you with 5 keys of survival. Conversion, country living, having food, water, resources on your property, ministry, and lastly, assisting someone else. Has the Lord moved upon your heart? Are you now desiring Bible studies to commit and recommit your lives to Jesus Christ? Please send me an email at the following address: admin@stsministry.com. I love you. Christ love you. So friends, get ready. Remain ready. Get others ready. Maranatha, the Lord is coming.